The day Micah heard her husband laugh with her best friend Denny behind the bedroom door, she didn't cry. Not when she found her wedding ring on the floor. Not even when they both told her, "We didn't mean to fall in love. It just happened." She just picked up the ring, smiled, and said, "You can keep each other, but I'm taking the one thing that neither of you saw coming." And she meant it, because revenge wasn't loud, it was brilliant. Micah and Denny had been best friends since they were little girls. They did everything together: school, sleepovers, sharing secrets. They were like sisters. So when Micah fell in love with Kato, it felt natural to introduce him to Denny. She trusted them both deeply. There was no reason to worry. At first, everything felt perfect. The three of them hung out a lot, going on trips, having dinners, taking photos, laughing at silly jokes. It felt like one big happy family. But slowly, things began to change, even if Micah didn't see it right away. Kato used to leave his phone around, open, with nothing to hide. Then suddenly, his phone started locking itself after just a few seconds. He kept it close, even in the bathroom. He smiled the same, held Micah's hand the same, but something in his eyes had shifted. Denny, too, began acting differently. She would cancel plans with Micah more often, or avoid eye contact when they talked. Micah noticed it, but she pushed the feelings aside. She thought maybe she was just overthinking. After all, this was her husband and her best friend. What could possibly go wrong? But behind those sweet laughs and perfect pictures, something ugly had already started. While Micah thought she was building a strong bond between the three of them, her trust was being quietly broken. And by the time the truth came out, it was already too late to fix what had been shattered. Micah didn't just introduce two people she loved. She unknowingly handed them the chance to betray her in the worst way. It was a quiet morning when Denny showed up at Micah's house. She smiled too much, her voice too soft, like she was trying to hide something. Micah could tell something was off right away. Denny wasn't her usual confident self. Her hands were shaking, and she kept looking down. But Micah didn't ask questions. Instead, she did what she always did. She welcomed her best friend, made her feel at home, and offered her a cup of tea. Micah walked into the kitchen, made the tea carefully, and brought it out on a tray. As she handed Denny the cup, Denny's hands trembled so much that some of the tea almost spilled. Micah looked at her, confused. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Denny just nodded, but her eyes were filled with something Micah couldn't understand. Then the front door opened. It was Kato. He walked in and saw Denny sitting there, holding the tea like it was too heavy for her. He didn't say hello or even pretend to be surprised. He just sighed, walked over, and stood between them. And then, without warning, he said it. "Micah, we didn't plan this, but we're in love, me and Denny." The words hit like thunder. Micah's heart stopped. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She just stared at the two people she trusted most in the world, her husband and her best friend, standing together like they belonged. "I think you already knew," Kato added, as if that would make it hurt less. Micah looked down and saw Denny reaching for Kato's hand. Their fingers touched. They weren't even ashamed. In that moment, Micah's hands slipped. The cup of tea spilled all over the floor, the hot liquid spreading fast. But it wasn't just tea that spilled. It was everything. Everything she believed in. Every memory, every plan, every bit of love and trust. Gone. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, frozen, watching her world fall apart in front of her. And somehow, they just stood there too. Like breaking her heart was something small, something they had to do to follow their heart. Micah knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same again. After the truth came out, everyone around Micah expected chaos. The neighbors were already whispering. They peeked through their windows, waiting to hear shouting, breaking things, maybe even a fight in the street. People love drama, especially when it's not their own. Some of them even came close to the house, pretending to pass by, just to catch a piece of the scandal. Even Kato's mother, who never really liked Micah much, called her with a fake soft voice, acting surprised, but secretly enjoying the gossip. "I heard what happened," she said. "Are you okay?" But Micah could hear the excitement behind her words. But Micah didn't give anyone what they were waiting for. She didn't cry in public. She didn't scream or throw clothes out the window. She didn't even ask Denny or Kato why. She already knew the answer wouldn't heal her heart. Instead, she stayed calm. She breathed. She walked into her bedroom, opened her small suitcase, and began to pack. Just a few clothes, her important documents, her phone charger, and one old photo of her late aunt. She didn't pack everything. She wasn't running away. She was simply stepping away, quietly, with dignity. Kato asked, "Where are you going?" He sounded confused, like he expected her to stay and fight for him. But Mika didn't answer. She just zipped her bag, stood tall, and walked past him. Denny stood by the door, looking nervous, maybe even guilty, but she said nothing. Mika looked her in the eye for a moment, and without a word, walked out. No tears, no drama, just silence. She left the house, the marriage, the betrayal, all of it behind her. But what no one knew was that Mika wasn't broken. She wasn't weak. She wasn't gone forever. She had a plan, a quiet one, a strong one. She knew something they didn't, and when the time was right, they would all see that the woman they thought they had destroyed was only just getting started. 2 weeks before Mika's world fell apart, she got a letter that changed everything. It came in a thick cream envelope, sealed with gold. It was from her late Aunt Remy, a woman who had no children but always loved Mika like her own. Aunt Remy had been a powerful businesswoman, known by many but understood by few. She built her company from the ground up, and when she died, everyone thought her assets would be sold or donated. No one knew she had left something behind, something special, something private, just for Mika. Mika sat alone in her living room the day she opened the letter. The words were clear and simple. Her aunt had left her a controlling stake, 60% ownership, in a big company. Not just any company, but the one where Kato, her husband, worked. The same company where he and Denny always talked about rising to the top. It almost felt like a joke, too strange to believe, but the legal documents inside proved it was real. Mika had power now, quiet, hidden power. She didn't tell anyone, not Kato, not Denny, not even her closest friends. She kept the papers safe in a folder deep in her drawer and smiled quietly to herself whenever Kato spoke about stress at work or how the company needed new leadership. He had no idea the real boss was sitting right across from him, cooking his dinner, asking about his day. Mika could have said something when she found out about the affair. She could have revealed everything in anger, but she didn't. She waited, because she knew love would only take them so far. At some point, they would need jobs, they would need income, they would need security, and that's when they would see her again, not as the heartbroken wife, but as the one holding the key to their survival. She understood something important. Real power is quiet. It doesn't scream or fight. It watches, waits, and then steps forward at the perfect moment. Mika didn't just lose her marriage, she gained a new purpose. And the best part, they had no idea. When she looked at Kato and Denny now, she no longer saw pain. She saw 2 people who would soon learn a very hard lesson, that betraying someone might be easy, but escaping the consequences is not. And Mika was ready, calm, strong, and holding the biggest secret of her life. The company where Kato and Denny worked was going through a big change. The board was being reshaped, and everyone was talking about who the new leaders might be. Kato and Denny were excited. They dressed sharp that day, feeling proud and confident. They believed they were finally going to rise, finally going to sit at the top. After all, they had worked hard, or so they thought. They smiled at each other as they walked into the boardroom, thinking they had everything under control, but they were not ready for what they were about to see. At the head of the table, in a room full of important people, sat Mika. She wore a deep emerald green dress that made her glow like royalty. Her hair was neatly styled, her face calm, and her presence powerful. Everyone in the room turned when they saw her. Kato froze in his tracks. Denny blinked, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. The same woman they had betrayed, the same woman they thought was gone forever. She wasn't gone. She was the boss now. Mika stood up slowly and spoke in a clear voice. "Good morning, I'm Mika Ayodele," she said. 60% shareholder, effective immediately. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. A few people gasped. Denny's hand shook as she reached for her water glass, and it slipped. The glass hit the floor and shattered, just like their confidence. Kato looked pale. Denny looked like she wanted to run, but Mika didn't shout or smile in revenge. She simply sat down, calm and sure. She didn't have to prove anything. Her presence said it all. She had returned, not as a broken wife, not as someone seeking pity, but as a woman who now owned the company they depended on. Everyone else in the room began to understand what was happening. Mika was no longer the quiet woman they remembered. She had power now, real power, and she carried it with grace. The betrayal didn't destroy her. It made her stronger. While they were busy laughing behind her back, she was preparing for this moment. That day, everything changed. Kato and Denny realized too late that the person they left behind was not someone they could walk over. Mika didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need to remind them of the pain. Just by walking into that room, sitting at the top of the table and saying her name, she made it clear the past was over and the future belonged to her. Mika sat at the head of the table, calm and confident, while Kato and Denny sat in silence. Their faces were full of shock and confusion. They didn't know what to expect. Maybe they thought Mika would fire them right away. Maybe they feared public shame. But Mika didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She didn't ask them why. She simply looked at them and spoke with strength and peace in her voice. She told them they could keep their jobs. Yes, they could stay at the company, but only under one condition. They would have to work under her, their new boss, for 1 full year. No favors, no skipping work, no special treatment. They would follow every rule, meet every deadline, and answer to her. If they wanted to keep their positions, they had to accept the new reality. Mika was now in charge. Kato looked away. His jaw was tight, like he was holding in anger or shame. Denny blinked fast, clearly trying not to cry. This wasn't the outcome they had imagined. They thought Mika would disappear quietly, maybe even fall apart. But instead, here she was, offering them a seat at the table, but on her terms. Mika leaned forward slightly and said something that hit them harder than anything else. "You wanted to build something together," she said, looking straight at them. "Let's see what you can build without destroying what you left behind." Her words were calm, but they carried deep meaning. She wasn't just giving them a chance. She was showing them what true power looked like. Not anger, not revenge, just strength, control, and grace. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, both Kato and Denny nodded. They had no choice. Mika held all the cards now, and so they agreed to her deal, to work under the woman they betrayed, to answer to the person they once looked down on. Mika didn't smile with pride or laugh in their faces. She just continued with the meeting, like a true leader. From that day, Kato and Denny came to the office every morning, knowing Mika was their boss. The same Mika they had broken now stood above them, stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. She didn't destroy them. She gave them a mirror to see who they truly were. And that, more than anything, was the real catch. The office changed completely after Mika became the boss. At first, Kato and Denny tried to act normal, pretending they could handle it. But as the weeks turned into months, the pressure grew. Every day, they walked into a building that reminded them of what they had done. Every task, every meeting, was now led by Mika, the woman they had betrayed. Deadlines became tighter. The staff, though polite, whispered. Rumors about the love triangle and the betrayal spread like wildfire. And while Kato stayed silent and stiff, Denny started to crack. She began missing meetings, forgetting reports, and avoiding eye contact. People noticed. She would hide in empty rooms, crying softly, trying not to be heard. The weight of guilt and shame was too heavy. One evening, long after most people had gone home, Mika found Denny alone by the stairwell, tears running down her face. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking. Mika didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, calm, watching. Then Denny finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought we won, Mika. I thought when Kato chose me, when you walked away, we had everything. But now, it feels like I'm just a shadow standing in your light. I don't feel seen anymore. I feel small." Mika took a breath, stepped closer, and looked directly into Denny's eyes. Her voice was calm, but clear. "That's because," she said softly, "you never really stepped out of my shadow. You were too busy chasing what I had, instead of building something of your own." Denny's face dropped. Those words hit her harder than any punishment ever could. It wasn't just about losing Mika's trust. It was about never truly having her own path. The truth was, Denny had copied Mika's life, her friendships, her love, even her goals. But now that Mika was in control again, it was clear who truly had the power all along. From that moment, something changed in Denny. The guilt, the jealousy, the fear, it all came pouring out. She wasn't the strong winner she thought she'd be. She was just someone hiding in someone else's story. And Mika, she didn't smile, she didn't boast. She simply walked away, letting Denny sit with the truth. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let someone break under the weight of their own choices. One rainy night, long after the office had emptied and the city lights blurred through the windows, Kato showed up at Mika's door. He looked tired, broken, like a man carrying the weight of all his wrong choices. The rain dripped from his coat as he closed the door quietly behind him, shutting out the storm outside and stepping into a room filled with silence and memories. He looked at Mika with eyes that once held love, but now showed regret. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as he said, "I made the worst mistake of my life." Those words hung in the air, heavy and real. He reached out slowly and tried to take her hand, hoping for a chance to fix what he had destroyed. But Mika didn't let him touch her. She moved her hand gently away, calm but firm. She looked at him with steady eyes and said, "This wasn't about revenge, Kato. It was never about getting even or making you suffer." Her voice was soft but carried a strong truth. It was a lesson, a reminder. Some things, like trust, once broken, never come back the same. Kato's face showed a mix of pain and understanding. He finally saw that the woman he hurt had grown stronger, not weaker. Mika wasn't the same person who had loved him blindly. She had found her power and her peace, not in revenge, but in knowing her own worth. That night, Kato realized he couldn't just walk back into Mika's life with empty apologies. What he had lost was deeper than love. It was respect and faith. Mika's decision to pull away wasn't cruel. It was necessary. She was protecting herself from more pain and teaching him that actions have consequences. As the rain kept falling outside, Mika watched him leave her office, knowing she had closed a chapter forever. She didn't need him anymore, and she didn't want to go back to the past. The future was hers to write, with strength, dignity, and the knowledge that some doors, once closed, are never reopened. After one whole year, Mika finally decided it was time to step away. She handed over the company's control to a trusted board, people she believed in, who could carry the business forward with honesty and care. It wasn't just a business to her anymore. It was a symbol of her strength and hard work. Walking out of the office for the last time, Mika didn't feel empty or broken. Instead, she felt powerful, free from the chains of her past and the pain she once carried. She knew that true success wasn't just about money or titles. It was about healing and helping others rise after falling. So, she started a mentorship foundation, a safe place where women who had been betrayed, hurt, or broken could come to learn how to rebuild their lives. Mika taught them how to turn pain into power, how to rise from ashes stronger than before. She became a beacon of hope, showing others that betrayal wasn't the end, it could be a new beginning. Whenever people asked her how she managed to move on without bitterness, without hate, Mika would smile warmly and say, "Because I took the one thing they never valued, myself." That simple truth was her secret. She chose to love and value herself above all else, and that made all the difference. Mika didn't just survive her story, she owned it, grew from it, and inspired others to do the same. If you believe in rising stronger after betrayal, share this story with someone who needs hope today. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and follow for more real-life stories that show the power of self-love and courage. Your journey to strength starts now. Let's walk it together.